Today, I will be teaching you the easiest way to ensure that your branding stays consistent across all platforms and breaking it down step by step how you can actually do this and implement it in your business. If you're new here, my name is Gabby. I'm a brand designer and business owner, and I teach you how to brand your business so that you can attract more of your dream clients and live your dream life. Before we dive into it, make sure to like this video if you like content like this, comment if you have any questions, and subscribe for more content from me. Like I said, today I'll be teaching you the exact way that big businesses and branding experts make sure that their business branding stays consistent all the time. The way that you do this is actually through something called a brand guide, and I'm going to be explaining in detail what that means today and how you can make it for your business. So a brand guide is basically a guide that outlines the rules for your business. So it says what kind of colors and fonts you use, what your logos are, your main logos, secondary logos, sub logos, when that type of logo can be used and should be used, what colors go together, the brand icons, the brand patterns, the brand imagery that you use in all your branding and all your design work, and every time a customer comes in contact with your business. So all these things that are included in a brand guide are actually designed strategically to work together in order to communicate the message that you want to translate to your ideal customers and clients. Brand guides are important because they are essentially the foundation of your brand's personality. And having a personality as a brand might sound a little weird, but it's super important for gaining customer trust and attracting your dream and ideal customers and clients. Inconsistent branding breaks trust, doesn't present you as a reliable business in the industry, and does not attract your dream clients, or really a lot of clients at all. Think of it like having friends. Would you give money to a friend that's always there, always consistent? You know them, you feel like you are like connected to them because you really know their personality and they're consistent all the time? Or would you give money to your friend that's inconsistent, flaky, you don't really know them deep down, you don't feel like a connection to them, you feel like you're barely friends? It's kind of the same thing when it comes to branding and business. As a business, your customers and your clients are relationships. You should want to build relationships with them. So you should look at them as your friend. So that's what a brand guide is and why it's important to have consistent branding for your business. Let's dive into the details and actual elements of a brand guide. So before you start the actual design process of creating the brand guide, like all the design elements, the colors, the fonts, the logos, you need to make sure that you really know your business and you use your businesses or brand's identity to guide you in the design process. What I mean by brand identity is your mission, your vision, your purpose as a brand, your target audience, and what you want to communicate, your brand voice, your brand personality. That's your brand identity. And then the brand guide is the actual visual elements that communicate this brand identity. But you really need to make sure that you have your brand identity nailed down so that you can create elements that actually communicate what your brand is about. So there are a lot of things that go into the brand identity, but the basics that you absolutely need to have, there's 5 of them. First, your mission and vision. I put these 2 in the same category because your mission is basically what you stand for right now, what your brand is, and then your vision is what you want your brand to become, what you want your business to become. So your mission and vision statement are similar, but different in very specific and strategic ways. The next part of your brand identity is your target audience. Like I said, your customers, your clients, these are people that you need to build relationships with in order to attract work with more of your dream clients and your dream customers. So you really have to know them more than just their age and their gender. You really need to know their psychographics and them down, like what their interests are, their behaviors, their problems, their pain points, all this stuff. If you want me to make a video going deeper into nailing down your target audience, I can go into that too. Just leave me a comment below. The next is your brand personality and brand voice. So your brand voice and personality are kind of the same thing. Your brand voice is basically how you want, how do you want to sound when you when you communicate with your customers and clients? Do you want to be friendly? Do you want to be spunky? Do you want to be edgy? Some brands and businesses swear within their copy, like on their website, in their social media, and that's fine. They're more of like an edgy voice and personality. Some brands keep it very clean. They're family friendly, stuff like that. That's what you want to kind of figure out how you want your brand to be presented to customers and clients. And this goes into knowing your target audience as well, because if you are like a Christian brand, you don't want to be swearing in your copy on your website, in your social media posts, because your target audience won't relate to that and they won't like that. But if you have like a edgier rock and roll brand that's kind of targeted at a younger, like millennial demographic, then that would probably be okay. The next part of your brand identity is your brand values. So these are basically the basics of the values of your brand, the foundation of your brand. What do you believe in as a business and as a brand? And it's also important that you know these and also they resonate with your target audience. So again, knowing your target audience is important. Brand values are stuff like honesty, integrity, creativity, uniqueness, stuff like that. If you do a quick Google search, you'll get a ton of different ideas for some core values. You really want to make sure that you uphold these values though in all your communication and content. And the last thing that you want to make sure you include in your brand identity is your brand story. People love stories. People really resonate and connect with stories. So you want to have a strong brand story. It could be about the business, about yourself as a business owner. It could be your own brand story. It could be, a story about somebody that you've helped. But you really want to write a brand story and connect in a emotional way, and so that you can really connect with your target audience. So that's the stuff that is included in the brand guide. It's usually included at the beginning of the brand guide. So if you work with a designer, like a professional designer, they will send you a brand guide most likely if they're doing a complete brand project for you, and they will kind of lay out all these things in a nice, like, visually, aesthetically pleasing way at the beginning of your brand guide. But the actual meat of your brand guide and why you have a brand guide is for the design elements. That stuff, your brand identity, just helps you or your designer create the visual elements. So let's get into the actual fun part of the brand guide and important part of the brand guide, because it'll help keep all of your branding consistent. The visual elements that you will want to have included in the brand guide, like I said, you can include more visual elements in your brand guide, but this is the basics that you just should have. So number one is a mood board. Usually when you work with a designer, after you go through your brand identity, all the things that we just talked about, your designer will probably ask you a few questions about what you want your brand to look like and how you want it to feel and what you want it to communicate. And they'll usually go on Pinterest or some sort of visual search engine and pull some visuals and some color palettes and just like vibes. I guess, you know what I mean? Like some visuals that give off the same vibe as what you want your brand to look like, and they'll put it in a mood board. And designers do it differently. If you're DIYing your brand, you can do it however you want. Sometimes they make a few different mood boards and they're kind of like, okay, given what you told me in our first call, like, these are some options, these are like the directions that they'll go in, and then you'll pick one and move forward. But it's really important that you have a mood board, because even though it's kind of like a mosh podge and collage of different stuff and you don't think it really helps that much, it really does help moving forward with the design process. Step 2 is the colors and the fonts. So these are really important to kind of like get in order before you move on to the logo design or the icons, because you want to have the colors and the fonts. And so these, you'll want to pick them based on the mood board. A lot of times you'll pull colors directly from the mood board, because colors are very impactful when it comes to making you feel a certain way. There's a whole color psychology. So usually when you find a mood board that you like the vibes of it or the feel of it, you'll pull colors from there to achieve the same vibe or feel. And then fonts, you'll want to have your main font for like headings. You want to have a secondary font for like subheadings, and then sometimes you'll want a like third font for like paragraphs, and these are the fonts that you will use in your graphics, in your Instagram posts, on your website. No matter what, you'll use these fonts and these colors, because that's one thing that's super easy to do that will make your brand just come off as so much more professional and put together, and build trust with your customers even if you just keep the same colors and the same font, because you always want to be communicating a message and a certain feeling with your customers and clients, and the way to do that is to stay consistent with this stuff. The next part is to design the logos. So you'll want a main logo that will be your main logo. You'll also probably want a secondary logo. So sometimes if you have a logo that has words stacked on top of each other, like it's kind of like more of a square, and you want to do a secondary logo where it's just kind of the words next to each other, so that you can put that in like banners or graphics that are rectangle and longer as opposed to taller. That would potentially be your secondary logo. I can throw some examples. So I did this logo for an ice cream brand, and so this is their main logo. You see how it's stacked on top of each other, and then this is their secondary logo. You see how it's straight across, and you want this secondary logo so that you can use it in places that you might not be able to fit your main logo in. Like it might be kind of weird to fit that in somewhere. And then you'll also want a sub logo, and you can even see this is a sub logo I designed for the ice cream brand. So it's simpler, it's smaller, and it's kind of like thrown in places where you want it to be branded, but you don't want to use your main logo. The next thing would be your brand icons or your brand marks. So these could be so many different types of things. This could be like little icons, little graphics, little shapes, like that just give off the feeling of your brand. So for me, I have the smiley face because that smiley face is in my logo and used a lot in all of my branding. I have the lightning bolt because the eyes in the smiley face are the lightning bolt. And then I do like stars and that kind of stuff. Gradients I use a lot too. So those can kind of be like brand marks that I just throw in. Sometimes I'll just put them in my Instagram stories, throw them in just to make it more branded. I'll throw them on my Instagram posts, all this stuff. I use certain shapes, and I always use these shapes. Like I use funky shapes because that's kind of the vibe I want to give off. So there's two in particular that I just like always use, and it works very well in my branding. The final thing is your brand patterns. So in addition to having your icons, your patterns can just be like patterns of your icons. So for the ice cream brand, a few of their icons I did were a cherry and an ice cream cone, and then I made patterns that's just all cherry, that's just all the ice cream cone, so that if you need to use like a background image or something for whatever reason, you have an actual pattern just to spice up, I don't know, on your website, for your Instagram posts, for whatever you need, you have the icons in pattern form. Or you can do just totally different patterns. You can also use, like I mentioned, like gradients I use a lot too. So in a lot of my Instagram posts, I'll show you my feed. It'll be kind of like the gradient style, and that is just goes cohesively with my branding. I use my brand colors, and it just makes everything look really nice. One last thing is your brand imagery. So I don't do a ton of this for my brand, but for certain brands, you'll want to have like types of images, so actual pictures that communicate the message that you want to communicate with your brand. So for example, like a swimwear company, they could have imagery of like the beach or pools or stuff like that. But that is also can be part of your brand guide as well. So all these visuals work together strategically to communicate your brand identity. So it's important to do both the brand identity and the brand guide. Usually what your target audience sees or people on the outside see is just the visual identity. They just see the brand guide part, the designs, the visuals, the graphics, but it's really important that you do both steps so that you can create visuals that will actually help your brand and be beneficial to it. Branding isn't just for your brand to look good. It's actually designed strategically. Like I said, I keep saying this, but it's really important that you understand that branding isn't just a luxury. It's actually a necessity. With so many businesses in the market, branding is a lot of times the thing that will set you apart. What you communicate to your audience, what your messaging is, what your visuals are, the vibe, the experience that you provide to your customers and clients, that's what's going to set you apart because, since we live in a capitalistic economy, it's great because there's so many different options for us to choose from, but at the same time, when you're a business owner, you could have a lot of competition. So branding is really important to help strategically set you apart from your competition. And one last thing I mentioned a few times, if you're doing branding yourself, that's totally possible. Make sure that you subscribe to kind of get a brand designer's advice and perspective on it. So if you're just starting out, you want to do branding yourself, that's okay. If you want to use Canva or if you're a little bit experienced in Photoshop, that's good to get your brand kind of up and running if you don't have the enough money to invest in a brand designer or professional branding right when you start. But it is important as you grow and as you scale as a business to probably invest in professional branding once you get to the point where you can invest in that type of stuff. Like I said, it's not really a luxury. It's kind of a necessity. So while you can do a lot of it yourself and you can make a brand look very good and use these strategies that I talked about in this video to do your own branding, you will want to invest once you start scaling. Congrats to making it to the end. Now you have all the ingredients and strategies that you need to create a beautiful brand guide and keep all your branding consistent through your social media, your website, wherever your target audience has contact with you. It really will help you create a loyal following and a group of repeat customers that just love your brand for you and for your brand. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you like it, comment any questions or comments that you have below, and subscribe for more videos like this. Bye!